listening to the whispers. Is my body telling me this is a yes? And knowing if you're not a gut instinct, you're not going to hear that. You need to learn other ways to know what your body truthfully is saying to you.
Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where together we build your empire and transform your subconscious stories about what's possible for your business, body, and life. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of CrownYourself.com, and I'm a master mindset coach, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, known to my clients as a game changer. Each week, you get the conscious leadership strategies you need to help you reign with courage, clarity, and confidence so that you too can make the income and impact you deserve. Imagine this podcast as your royal invitation to step into your full potential and reign in your divine purpose. Your sovereignty starts here, and your reign is now.
Leslie, welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast. I am so honored and excited to have you here because I just want to dive into what is a digestion code.
I love it. That's a great question to ask first, right? You got to get to the good stuff first. I agree. A digestion code is truthfully your unique internal code of your digestive system. Now, why is that important? Because everything that matters to your health, to your wellness, whether it's pain, whether it's gut health, whether it's weight loss, whatever it might be, is actually dictated internally, not externally. So everything we've ever done so far is I'm going to take this pill. I'm going to go see this doctor. This doctor is going to have me do this work on the outside of my body, do the stretches, do this, right? I'm going to relieve my pain through this. I'm going to take this medication. I'm going to take this supplement. I'm going to follow this to-do list, eat this, not that. I'm going to work out. And we're always going externally. But your digestive system, your brain, your second brain, your biggest organ of the body is controlled internally, is not controlled externally. And so we're missing the true piece of unearthing what our digestive system is saying. This unconscious piece that is occurring every single second of every single day is a part of our code. And we all have a very unique code. It is not something that you have the same as someone else, just like the digestive system is your second brain. It is unique to you. That's why we get these lumped things of like, we have IBS. It's really a doctor's way of saying, I don't really know what's wrong, but I understand your symptoms are real. Okay. And other things like, I'm not really sure, you might have this allergy thing, so just avoid this, right? And we don't like that. We hate that. We're like, what does that mean? You know, I want to get to the bottom. That is truthfully your code of knowing it is an unconscious piece, whether it's part of the unconscious mind, you know, your subconscious, 88% of your actual brain, or your actual gut health brain, that gut health that's talking to you, or a combination of both, truthfully.
Yeah, and your gut sends 80% more signals to your brain than your brain does to your gut.
Yeah.
And so often, like, there are phrases used like trust your gut that typically refer to and imply to intuition or this understanding and collaboration between the conscious and unconscious mind. But what happens when the gut is polluted? Does that have an impact on our ability to have that connection to our intuition and to our gut, like to that gut feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I always point out that when you are told that, listen to your gut, only about 70 to 80% of people actually have a gut feeling. There are people that don't actually have a gut feeling. They don't have an internal yes, no, go with your gut. So when you tell them that, they're like, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know how to trust that because I've never heard of it, right? So it sounds really funny, but trusting your gut can only go so far. There is 20% to 30% of the population that just doesn't have that. That is a piece of the digestion code. Can you trust your gut, for lack of a better words, or not, right? And then if you don't have the gut piece, how to go to that. Now, in trusting your gut, it's interesting. I would say yes and no. It depends on how polluted both the internal digestive system are and your brain, because the trusting your gut piece is overridden by the rules you were taught as a child or even as an adult. So a rule I was taught when I was 15 years old and I joined high school. I went to high school. I played high school softball, and my high school softball coach told me I was too fat to play varsity softball. Now, I was in normal, healthy weight. I just wasn't super skinny. And less than 5 days later, a girl I sat next to in most of my classes that I enjoyed chatting with, we laughed a lot, I asked her to hang out and she said, I'm really sorry. You're too fat to hang out with. So in less than 5 days of entering high school, I have learned there is such a thing as fat and I am it. So I accepted this rule in my brain. I accepted the poison from these people that I am fat. And I spent my entire high school life trying to not be fat. And I actually wound up 25 or 35 pounds heavier. Now, that rule that I accepted when I was 15 years old, and now I'm 38, is still playing in my brain when I accept the pattern. So that piece is playing out in me at some times. There are times when, I'll witness a whole bunch of like super skinny or more fit people than me. And I'm like, maybe I am fat. I'm like, oh, I bought it again, right? That internal poison, both in my unconscious mind and gut, are dictating how the food will play in my gut. So yes, it can be both mind and like actual internal gut that are playing with that, depending on what you were provided as information when you were younger.
Oh, Queen, you are speaking my language as someone who battled for 10 years an eating disorder with bulimia, because 9 years old, I was told I might want to lose that little tummy if I wanted to be a professional ballerina.
Oh.
And I started dieting and going down this rabbit hole. And, it didn't help that I came from a family of addiction. So I just modeled it in a different form of addiction. But it wasn't until I really healed that unconscious mind piece of as far as like what patterns was I actually buying into and believing that were manifesting into my body. It was manifesting as me being anemic and sick and not feeling good and constantly like actually overweight, but not like really overweight, but just a little bit, because it was me holding on to that like guilt and shame from those belief systems that I borrowed.
Completely. Yeah. And that's the funny thing. And most people think that bulimia actually helps you to lose weight. And there's a lot of science behind it that once you do it for so often, like your gut actually holds on to 70% of what you eat within like 10 minutes or something. It's ridiculous. I people always want the research study after I say that. I was like, I don't know. I remember it from college and I really don't have a clue. I bet you I could go back to the teacher. She could give it to me, but.
And it makes your face fat, like, because the bile gets trapped up into your face. So even if you're not overweight, like it'll definitely make your face look bigger, which makes you in turn look bigger. So the beauty was, though, it's in that healing space of so how do you work with the digestion code? Like, say someone has those programmings, it's impacting their digestion. What's the first step to really guide into understanding how we're communicating with our gut and how our gut's communicating with us?
So truthfully, I really start with people getting clear on why the heck they're focused on health. We're all always focused somewhat on health. I need to lose this weight. I need to lose this 10 pounds. I got this weird gut thing going on. I'm aging. I'm getting closer to menopause, maybe perimenopause. Maybe I'm postpartum. Maybe I just stopped breastfeeding and now I have a difference of hormone from the shift of like no longer breastfeeding. I think it's like around 2 years after you've had a baby, your hormone shift, and then 2 years after you stop breastfeeding, the hormone shift again. And so we have all these, as I call, lovely steps of being a woman. Okay. We really truthfully have a lot of lovely steps that we're taught to dread. Okay. You dread getting your period. It's awful. You're not going to control it. You get bloated once a month. Make sure you always have a tampon. Stop wearing red or white shorts because you never know what's going to happen, right? So we get one awful thing after the next, right? Unless you had this like a super, powerhouse family that was all just like, embrace it, love yourself, right? And that's more of where we're going to now. However,
thank God.
Right, exactly. We're so focused on this piece of our body is wrong. Our body is breaking down versus our body is talking to us. So I really get people clear, right? People come to me all the time. I want to lose weight. I want to get rid of this pain. Okay, but why? And that, I really don't like that when you say why, then people are like, oh, here's that why thing again. It's more truthfully of the piece of, are you even focusing on health because you want to, or because you just think it's something to add to the to-do list, right? We're overtasking ourselves, withdrawing ourselves. So I make people get really clear on that first to make sure that they're aligned with what will shift. And then we really dive into that piece. First, do you even have a gut response? I typically start there. We need to learn, do you have a gut response to be able to know yes or no? If you don't, then you're truthfully going out there, grabbing every diet off the shelf, grabbing every pill off the shelf, listening to every doctor in hopes that it will work, when you just have to learn that what your body's actually saying. So listening to the whispers of what's being presented. These are the two most pinnacle steps that are overridden in the beginning, and really tying in the vagus nerve health. Has anybody ever addressed your vagus nerve? Has anybody ever spoken to you? What are those pieces? And those are really like, if you were to work with me in the first few weeks, we're going to talk about all of those things. That's where the bulk of your overall health for life exists. And that's where no one is truthfully really focusing right now in the typical medical world. There's more healers and practitioners that are going there as well. So
yeah. Oh my gosh, you hit on such a beautiful point of this concept of dread. And like, I see this constantly play out in every relationship that we have, right? People, if they're, not making money in their business, they dread looking at their bank account. And suddenly there's that relational dread. If they're having a challenge with a customer, they dread interacting, and like they dread approaching, and dread is this emotion that prevents us from actually approaching and keeps us stuck in a cycle of avoidance and perfectionism. And like, it's either swinging the pendulum from complete avoidance or like trying to hyper control everything. So what are some cues like that you notice of dread, that if you could wave a magic wand and just change society, that you'd be like, we're going to shift the calibration of dread to one of acceptance and love and just honoring that space? What would be some major societal shifts that you'd love to see, that of things we stop dreading about our bodies?
yeah, so I mean, truthfully, I start with every mom that has a daughter, not to say not sons. I mean, I have a daughter and a son, so I talk to both. But we really do program women in a different way than men. I have cousins and things where my aunt would tell my cousin when we were little, I could eat like that until, and I tell you, when she turned that age, she had every sign and symptom. And I learned that that's an acceptable thing. Yeah, I could eat like that until, oh, it's fine until this occurs. Sure, everything's good until you hit menopause, or sure, everything's good until you have your baby. My mom used to joke, and maybe this is why I don't have a third kid, that after she had me, her foot grew a half of an inch. Like, she had to go from a 6 to a 6.5. I got to get all new shoes after I had you. And I was like, I'm afraid to God, my feet don't grow. I don't want to buy new shoes, kind of thing. But yeah, I won't forget that about my mom. But I only have 2 kids, so who knows if it's a thing. My sister does too, and we're both Finnish, so you never know if it would have occurred through that programming. But
Yeah.
even things as simple as a boyfriend or another member, or like those girls, like my softball coach and the other girl, programming us with those things. So I really want to start with moms and dads programming our children with the right things about their body. Trust your body when it's hungry. It's 30 minutes before dinner. You can't eat anything. Okay, I trust your body's hungry, honey. So let's go ahead and give you something to eat that's healthy, that will support you, right? And when I talk about health, there's never a this food is bad, this food is good. This food has less nutritional value, this food has more. That's all we're really comparing. And it's really hard when you get down to it, to like which food actually has more nutritional value. It depends on what you need in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So really getting down to that basis of attracting people to understanding that our body is here to support us. And the more tools we can have to teach them, like, oh, you need to go to the bathroom, let's get there now, right? When we're potty training kids, we're always like that. Trust your body, go. Trust your body, go, right? But then we go to school and we're told you can't go to the bathroom now. And all of these things teach us to distrust and to trust everyone outside. So I'd really love to see people starting to teach, even now in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, how you can trust your body. That's truthfully what the basis of the digestion code is to trust the whisper and stop listening to the doctor out there that's telling you have to do this thing or take this thing. Now, I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for those. I'm not saying, cancel all the things that your doctor's given you. But if you know there's a higher alignment, trust that and really learn how to trust your body again. It's probably just stored trauma that you're experiencing instead.
hmm When I found out that only 1/4 of American medical schools require even just a semester in nutrition, that woke me up quite a lot as to the system and when it's great to be used and when it's not. But when I had, coming out of being bulimic and having my doctor try to prescribe me antidepressants because I could literally time the 2 weeks during my cycle when I would slip into a very depressive state, I was like, but I don't think that's it. And it was a nutritional deficiency that I was having. It wasn't actually depression. It was gut. And so when you're able to recognize like how the body and the mind play in the synchronistic dance, and I love what you said about just really honoring and trusting each person's unique, their awareness of their own body. That's something that I've been teaching my son recently with drinking water. Because man, when he goes to camp, sometimes he's just having so much fun. And I'm like, buddy, you should be able to get through a walk because we'll go take a walk in the evening. And he's like, I'm so thirsty. And I'm like, you should be able to get through a 30-minute walk without like needing to carry a bottle of water if you're properly hydrated. And I was just like, how much water did you drink today? He goes, like half a bottle. And I'm like, dude, you were playing for 9 hours in the sun. No wonder you feel like crap. So, I mean, just being able to have those conversations of waking up to the awareness of the signals of our body. And so what happens, especially for those adults and for those high achieving women who have, especially those who have experienced trauma, which many of our audience have, when you have had those experiences and you shut your body off from feeling, how do you come back to that place of being in relationship with your body again to listen to the communication?
It's a great question. Truthfully, that's where I feel like the coaching aspect comes in. It's hard. I'm rereading the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
It's always so hard for me to get through. I was military a long time ago and never did I experience it. But one of my very best friends was deployed in Afghanistan and she was medical. So every person went through her. So I think that's why it is so, I'm probably still in the first chapter. I don't even know, listening to it again. And I break down and I cry a little bit. It hits me harder because I can know people that were affected. One of my best friends was a Marine and he was affected, right? And I sometimes believe it's my empath side that's processing it for them or knowing like, gosh, I can't believe they went through that and being, open to that at that moment. But for us, to truly remove trauma, to truly help yourself, to truly understand the inside of your body, you really need someone else there because our subconscious mind will protect us and shut us down from whatever it is that we actually need to do at that moment. It's really interesting to watch people get super into confusion and very much not understanding why they're not getting the result or why they can get the result, but they immediately lose it, or in a year they lose it, or they're dreading, almost like they're dreading getting the result as much as they're dreading being where they are, and they're not sure, and they're dreading all the steps in between. It's like, I'm going to go do this again. I kind of call it like basically the seasonal shift in your body. We're a little bit more keen January through March, and then April comes and we're a little bit less keen, and then comes school time, we're like, okay, I'm going to be back on it. And then it falls off come, Thanksgiving. And it's literally like a wave every single year of the health things that we go through. And we're not processing this, but as you said, with a little bit of woo added, that can be a piece even based on your astrological chart. So I bring that in too. And there's like this piece of, you're missing so many pieces that can help you process. The trauma could actually be linked to something that's in your astrological chart as well, and that you're just bringing it up at certain times of year. The wisdom of anxiety piece comes into there. Potentially, it's just a trigger of a date that does it to you. And so having a coach really help you process, where is that actual trauma, that actual confusion coming in, and how do we open your mind to see it? So you're just aware. So now I'm aware, let's say every, August 9th, I go into this, kind of anxiety or fear for whatever reason it was. Now I'm aware. So I'm aware as I get up to it. Now, that doesn't mean that on August 9th, when I'm reoccurring in it, it doesn't mean I'm not going to eat the whole bag of Oreos. I'm going to be conscious of eating the whole bag of Oreos. I'm going to know I'm eating the whole bag of Oreos, and I'm going to choose yes or no. Most people choose no, But there are still times when it occurs that you have a few or you do whatever it is. And because you're aware, that actually decreases the side effects of whatever you're doing. It's actually really cool. Once you learn it, have that coach help you process what it is. Once you're aware of it, when you do the act, because you've chosen it in awareness, the compounding effect of, let's say, normally I eat the bag of Oreos, I gain 10 pounds in a week, and then I can't fit into my clothes, and then I have to do this crazy diet or something, or I eat these Oreos, and then I really bring up my IBS, or I bring up all my gluten issues, or I wind up having to go to the doctor, or whatever it is that occurs from this thing. When you are aware of it, it's interesting, because if you were to complete the act because of the awareness, you don't get the same side effect. So that's where I really think that people need the help at.
You are so speaking my language, because this was exactly what I did when I was reprogramming my mindset from being bulimic. And it only took like 2 short years. I was bulimic for like 8 years. And then it only took 2 years of this awareness that came from consciously, instead of just jumping into the trigger, because eventually, you know, with the 8 years of a habit, like it becomes this serious trigger. But instead of jumping into the trigger, I would consciously be aware, okay, I'm consciously choosing to drive to the grocery store to buy, what was it that I would get like a cupcake, and I would eat the frosting because I'm gluten-free. And then I would eat it with gluten-free cookies. I'm consciously aware that I'm going to eat as much of this as I desire. And I'm going to let it be what it is. And I'm going to honor that my body is currently craving that. And I'm currently choosing to allow myself to lean into this craving. And suddenly I stopped punishing myself. And then the weight stopped. Suddenly I wouldn't be having those moments of 10 pounds. Suddenly I add on in, like you said, in a week. So I love the fact that you're bringing up the symptomology, and the reaction doesn't happen because of conscious awareness. I like to map across and look at like how these principles can be applied into other areas. Because I think in anything, when we just bring conscious awareness to our actions, it diffuses the doubt, the dread, the firecrackeriness of other results that can happen. Have you noticed that parallel as you've grown your business?
Completely, especially with the guilt and shame. So I guess I really never had guilt. And I'm sure I had guilt and shame around food when I was in my 20s. Because I was a definite cycle dieter. It depended. Like, was I really happy with the boyfriend? Was I not? You know, like, how deep in was it? You know, it just depended. If I went back and really analyzed, which I didn't. But because of all the cycles is really what led me here to uncovering the digestion code, to really diving into other things besides just nutrition, personal training, because I am a dietitian and a personal trainer, but I have all these other things that really come into play here. And when you're really thinking about it, I find that guilt and shame is a huge backbone of a lot of this, and the punishment around food or the punishment around the trauma in correlation to the body, right? So a lot of people can wind up gaining a lot of weight if they were abused in any way, if they were raped or had any other issues or anything, right? And just even saying those words can bring it up, right? Like as I'm rereading this or re-listening to The Body Keeps the Score, just hearing about military members can sometimes bring up things in me from hearing their stories, right? So that piece of this deep guilt and shame stems into me of when I get into a guilt and shame pattern, let's say it's around food. Okay, let's say back in the day, I would have punished myself come a Monday morning. If I would have had like chicken and nachos and margaritas or something with my boyfriend all weekend long, okay, and just completely wrote off on that. And just the stemming of the shame and guilt, I see now how it would bring up the dread of having to do this, the dread of how I was taught, the dread of that moment when I was called fat, the dread of even just work, you know, like it's Monday. What is that song? Just Another Manic Monday. I always think of that song, Just Another Manic Monday, or you know, can't wait till a Tuesday night we would bowl. And so when we would bowl, that would almost feel like a weekend again, but then we dread Wednesday again. And then, you know, Thirsty Thursdays and, you know, finally Fridays, or thank God it's Friday, or whatever you want to call it this time, or now they're calling it Fry-yay or something. I don't even know. I don't keep up with them anymore. But it would cause dread in me going to work and me doing the things and me doing all of anything. You know, I used to teach spin classes before and after I would work. And sometimes it would make me dread having to go. And if the energy of the people was off, I was like, why am I doing this? It's so silly. You know, it's not worth my time. So the dread would come up in all of these other things from the shame and the guilt, from just inducing the shame and the guilt of me having these things versus me just being like, I had a great fun time with my boyfriend this weekend. I'm going to let that go in the weekend. I'm going to eat well for myself today. I'm going to feel good and I'm going to enjoy my day. But those are also shame and guilt patterns and patterns I accepted from my, parents and other people growing up that influenced the way I related to my day.
I mean, dread is such an interesting emotion. And having worked with leaders for 9 years now as their coach and having taught Pilates for 13 years before that, like I can definitely say, like the dread that people, I don't want to say naturally because I don't think it's natural. I think it's programmed. But how do you surmount dread? Is it just by making a new conscious choice?
It's a great question. Yes and no. I do believe you actually have to use others. So I use other tools to help people clear almost where they accepted it. So not just making a new choice, but also clear what you accept, who or what you accepted it from, especially if that person is still living. So my parents are both alive and well. I mean, my grandma, my mom's mom is alive and well. My dad's dad is alive and well. So I still have a lot of lineage left here. And that puts a little bit, now, yes and no. It can still be hard when the parent, or let's say like my sister Lisa did pass away. There are still bonds I created with her that I have to release, right? And it's truthfully being aware, I have this thing, okay? Doesn't mean I want you to go back and go into all this childhood trauma or things like that. It's just, okay, whose voice is it in your head? And these are the actual tangible steps. Okay, so one of the things I just recently discovered is that I love what I do and I still call it work, but I work for myself, but I don't really work for myself. I am passionately doing what I love to do. And I call it work. And the moment I do it, I actually feel a shift internally in my body, like, we have to do that thing still, right? Because work to me, minus my dad, who really just kind of loved everything that he did throughout his life. But my mom, my sister, all the people that I had learned from before taught me that work was something I didn't want to do, something I had to do, something that I had to go through the motions of. And I noticed that when I say that, I bring them back up. So what do I have to do to override that? First of all, I have to identify, I'm bringing dread in. I'm bringing shame in. I'm bringing guilt in. Okay, I close my eyes typically and I ask myself, whose voice am I hearing inside my head? Normally it's like my mom, my dad's, my sister's, a teacher's, something along those lines. And I just kind of say to that person, okay, I'm going to break this bond with you right now. Like, I'm not going to accept what you provided to me. And now I'm going to make the conscious choice to do it. And it might be doing it frequently, but this is one of the tools I find most helpful for me is literally talking to the voice. Like, I want to break it. Some people will cut cords. If they know those kinds of things, they'll cut cords from the statements and many other things. And I find that that's most helpful.
Oh, so powerful. Yeah, I have been on the 75 Hard program, and I haven't called it the 75 Hard because hard is something that I am actively shifting a paradigm. And as I've in the past, I tried, quote unquote, 75 Hard and just, and I'm like, literally, it's 90 minutes of working out. Come on. I used to teach 3 classes a day. So I looked at my language, and just throughout this journey I've been on and loving it, I loved it because I stopped calling it 75 Hard. I started calling it my program. And so I honored that I had a program and a process and something that I was doing that was for me, that I loved, that just was bringing me back into my body after a year of health challenges. And this was like, oh my gosh, I get to feel my body again. And that's my program, versus the language of work, the language of hard, and this language where we gauge our perceptions of our reality and our experience. And I literally was texting a friend the other day and she's like, how are you doing 75 Hard? I'm like, because I don't call it hard. Like, I just call it a program right now. And I'm happy to be on this program, and I'm excited to complete this program, and just this space of being able to do that.
I love it. I agree with you completely. And we, like I always say to people, we call diet, die with a T. Yeah. And truthfully, diet is wrong. Diet is truthfully just anything you eat in a day. If you were to look it up in a dictionary, diet is everything you consume in a day. Yeah. It is not some sort of, like, now it probably has 3 or 4 definitions. Obviously, let's face that. because every word does at this point, but that's truthful. And as I like to explain, that's why I don't like the words good or bad foods. That's why I don't like you can eat this, you can't eat that, because you train your brain to associate this food is bad by giving it the you cannot eat it. You touch a little kid not to touch a button, and the only thing they're going to focus on is that button until they get to push it, no matter what. We are just grown up little kids, okay? The moment you tell us something we can't do, we're like, okay, we'll figure out how we can do it. Or, it depends. I really liked hearing that. Whether you always listen to your parents and you're still living out their patterns, or you're doing the complete opposite, you're actually still obeying your parents. Because by doing the complete opposite, you're literally still choosing their rules instead of choosing your own. And I really love that, because I find so much of this stems from how we connotate things: hard, good, bad, not allowed, allowed. I have to do this thing to get this result. I have to whatever. Versus, I get to do this. It's a part of my journey. I'm so in love with it. It's how I want to eat. It's how I want to live. And I'm going to choose my own set of rules. And that's a part of your digestion code, is truthfully choosing your set of rules based on your body. For me, I really have never followed rules since my 20s. But last year, in June of last year, actually, I did a moon circle retreat with my moon circle that I'm a part of. And I came back and I couldn't eat meat anymore. And I still have gone. I've gone now a year and a little bit without eating any meat. And it is literally something where I am consciously choosing it. It is a part of my brain. It has nothing to do with the reasons why people choose not to go and eat meat. It literally has to do, I truly believe, with the alignment of my own digestive system. And it's probably always been something there. But I was told to eat meat when I was a kid. Thus I did, right? We didn't really have as many meat alternatives. And then when I went to college, and then name every diet out there right now, protein is a huge source. You don't get rid of animal protein. So I would follow the rules as appropriate from everybody else. And as I've become more alignment in myself, that's just something I don't have in my diet. But what I explain to people is, you might have a season where there's just a food that you really do actually enjoy. Like, burgers still smell delicious to me, but I cannot literally fathom swallowing them or putting them in my mouth right now. You might have seasons like that. And that is your body healing itself, trusting yourself. And internally, I see why that is occurring in my life and how it's helping me in all the other aspects to delete the dread, to break other bonds, to grow further. As you said, business women, people who want to feel happier, the things that are part of this. This is a piece. And it could be just a season. It could be years. It could be whatever. But I don't ever choose it as, I'm not eating meat because it's bad. I'm not eating meat because my body right now is telling me this is not something we do. Mm-hmm. And when my body says we can again, I will again. And if it never does, I guess it never does, But that's a piece. I mean, I didn't eat bread for probably 10 years of my life. And now living in Spain, I eat crazy amounts of bread. It's fabulous. And I'm not going to get rid of it, right? My daughter's the same way. She's always like, do we get bread here? I'm like, we get bread everywhere we go. It's just a thing, But yeah, so yes, that's the piece to look at it. It's not 75 hard. It's not this thing I have to do. It's literally listening to the whispers. Is my body telling me this is a yes? And knowing if you're not a gut instinct, you're not going to hear that. You need to learn other ways to know what your body truthfully is saying to you.
Yes. Yeah. Because there were so many times when my conscious mind wanted to choose it. And every time my body was like, no, not the right time. And it wasn't until back in early April, I had an early miscarriage. And that really kind of woke me up to, like, my body is not physiologically in a place to, like, carry a life. Like, it needed to get stronger and healthier and just work out more. And because I'm like the natural birth proponent. I'm that weirdo who does it without drugs in a bathtub. So
I'd love to. I was conscious of that after mine. So I joke every once in a while that's why I'm like, okay, we got to keep things in place. I'm going to be the one that wants a third kid just so I can have that story.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really crazy, cool, amazing story. But man,
sure.
Like that was just like my moment of just seeing the alignment And my body's saying, yes, this is time to do this program versus like, you've got to do it now because you're like all the shame and the guilt and things, which never makes anybody successful anyways, because they're constantly in a space of resistance. And that can go for your body. That also goes for your money. That also goes for your relationships. When you're trying to, quote unquote, make something work in a space of resistance, you're fighting yourself.
Totally. I like how I'm going to loop back in there with how you said you gave birth. So note, you wrote yourself that story. I'm going to be the person that does this naturally at home in my bathtub, and it's going to be fine, right? Why is that important? Because you wrote your story and you let no one else in. This is something we do with our health. We let everyone else in. Everyone else gets a say. You choose to do something. This is another piece I work with people in the first 3 weeks. I identify who are the people that are who are your biggest supporters? Because 98% of the time, those people that are your biggest supporters are your biggest unsupporters when you change your health. That is it's the weirdest, strangest thing. But the moment you go to do it, some of our biggest supporters become very weary. And they actually become our unsupporters. And they then throw in the little things, the little tidbits underneath that make you question. And then you go back to Googling. And then all of a sudden your Facebook's lit up with 75 ads for new products, right? Okay. So you start questioning. And just bringing in the questioning then decreases your results because your body's like, why are we doing this if we need to do those things, right? And so we miss that. But because you chose that path, you get that. Now, that's an important moment for me, you choosing this, because you're choosing that your body's going to act, right? So as I say, this is pinnacle to women as we age. You've chosen, my body can do this as a woman. Okay, I know that it can. So now I tie that into, as we age, my body actually gets fitter as I age. My hormones might change as I age. I don't disagree that hormone changes. We have menopause. However, I choose not to listen to the menopause symptoms I was taught I had to have. Instead, I program myself with these things. That's why we have women who literally skate through menopause like it was nobody's issue, right? And then women who have a lot. And I truly believe it's our agreement of accepting this. And that's why then you get to the close to menopause phase. I mean, I'm 38 years old. I guess I could be close to perimenopause. I don't even know the ages. I don't want to learn them on purpose. Yeah. I don't want to know what the gurus say. Yes, I know I'm close, whatever, but literally the OBGYN said to me, just to let you know, as you start to experience perimenopause symptoms, you don't have to do this alone. You can come to us, you can get medication. I was like, wow, I didn't even bring it up. She just brought it up to me, right? See, I'm induced. I'm a conscious person, right? So she brings it up. If this were 15 years ago and I had no idea, I'm like, oh, I must be close to perimenopause. I better look up all the signs and symptoms. And then I would literally induce all of that into my body solely because someone with authority in my life told me. Doctors, teachers, best friends, boyfriends, husbands, mom, all those people, moms, grandmas, right? All of them. So yeah, it's a huge, huge piece to this. It's pinnacle to knowing that. And I just love how your birth story tied into that. It's so...
I love it. Yeah, it's this next one. I'm very excited because, like, technically I'm labeled geriatric. But for me, I just find that so freaking ridiculous. I'm like, whatever. Okay, medical system. That's just my take on it. But then again, I'm the Enneagram 8 who likes to challenge things. So
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah. My sister was geriatric for both of hers, and she's like, that just makes you feel old. I was like, right. I mean, at this point, we might as well label geriatric as like 46 because carry him later. I don't know.
Yeah, my housekeeper, oh my God, she had a baby at 49.
Wow.
Yeah. But she didn't buy into the programs of like society because it's totally different culture. So it's like, you know, I had a half-written book years ago because I started out from Pilates and going into like because of my healing journey with bulimia, understanding wellness and how the unconscious mind really plays into it. As I was like writing the book, which was actually more of like a journaling and cathartic process, like processify how I did what I did, I realized I was like, oh my gosh, I've been programmed by my mom and my grandma about this thyroid issue, thyroid thing. And so then when we brought, like we all moved together. After my dad passed, we moved my mom in with us, and that's it. She's our granny, and it's great. But suddenly, after we move into our house, I'm like, I started having all these weird, funky things going on with my body and gaining weight. And my mom's like, "It's thyroid. You know that?" Like, but then I've so rejected that idea that I went to the doctor, got checked, and he's like, "No, your thyroid's fine. I have no idea what you're talking. You have mono."
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. That's funny though. Yeah, that's a huge piece too, just being closer to them, right? I'm going home for Christmas with my husband. I was like, okay, I got to get a lot of systems in place because it's gonna be like trigger, right? Everybody bringing in the things, and I'm doing so great where I'm at. But the moment you get there, you've got to have those systems in place. And it's interesting that you brought up thyroid too, because sometimes people can get a thyroid issue or like an autoimmune issue or something later on in life from a pattern that they like accepted as a young child of, okay, when this occurs, that occurs, or potentially based on as well part of their digestion code, them not being able to really speak their piece, whether it was to the person that caused them more trauma or speak their piece in general in life, where they feel more silenced, they can wind up with these thyroid issues and other autoimmune issues. And that's where they go, how did this come from? Where did this come from? Like, I literally was healthy yesterday. Why is this occurring in my life? And that's why, because of this. And instead they go down this huge road of like more tests and more doctors and more pills and more, versus, okay, I'm still going to look this way, but let me look that way as well. What else is outside? Because this seems absolutely crazy to me. So something else has to be there that I just need to process.
Mm-hmm. It's being holistically aware, because that which is like, I just live by a very simple principle that which is conscious manifests happily, that which is unconscious manifests unhappily. So if something is unhappily manifesting itself in my external awareness, like just even, for example, my early miscarriage, like that was such an unconscious example of like, oh my gosh, that was an unhappy experience, obviously, but being able to say, oh, that's because unconsciously I haven't been really loving my body. Like I haven't really been caring for her physiologically and building her strength and building her up. That's where I need to heal and do this inner work and like actually do the physical work of like, maybe taking a walk.
I get it. There is a lot in that. I still tell people, the only thing you do today is take a walk. I just want you to know that taking a walk actually drops depression by like 80 or 90% or something astronomical, as well as a billion other things. So when you're having a really like drowsy day, literally go take a walk, even if it's 10 minutes. There is so much research behind that of, when you had a bad day to go just take a walk, where people don't think that, I had a bad day, I'm going to lay down, I'm going to watch TV. And that actually just increases it. So
yeah.
Getting into.
And then you just add on, the glass and then 2 glasses of wine and
yeah, exactly.
And you're not listening and having that conversation in the relationship with your gut.
Completely.
So when you started down this road, did you know that it was going to lead into like this connection between the unconscious mind, or did you you started out very much, you were trained as a dietitian and personal trainer, and what brought you into this greater holistic awareness?
It's a great question. I would say, no, in the beginning, that wasn't it. I became a dietitian because I struggled for 4 years in high school with my own weight. And I thought, what better way to get it under control than to be a dietitian? A joke with people when they go to school to be a dietitian is, did you have an eating disorder and that's why you became a dietitian? Or do you now have disordered eating because you are a dietitian? Because we know so much. One of my favorite things to tell people is, I know exactly how a carbohydrate, a protein, and a fat digest from your mouth to your butt. Okay. I can literally break it down for you and make you understand it. I say that always when people tell me, how do you not know this about world history or something? I'm like, do you know how a carbohydrate, a protein, and fat digest? When they look at me like, no, I'm like, okay, great. You know your stuff. I'll know my stuff, right? Because it's a way to put you down. Like, no, I don't know everything in world history. I'm sorry. Wasn't my favorite thing to do, right? So why is it important to this is that I listened. I'm a great student. And still to this day, I have to like even talk myself back from like a program because I'm a great student. you're going to give me tons of things to do and I'm going to do each one of them, but I have no idea how it all fits together. I'm just looking for your A plus. Like, good job, you did it, right? So I became a dietitian and I wanted to have this A plus life. And literally nowhere in St. Louis, Missouri would give me a job. So I joined the Navy, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. And that will teach you nutrition from a completely different aspect, needless to say. But I learned so much in nutrition, and I actually stayed working there. After I finished there, I went back as a civilian and did the same job, just not in my Navy clothes. And I just saw this shortage of just people, and still even like now, they don't have to be in the military or associated, like, just give me the thing. Give me the thing. I need the thing. I'm like, what? Why does everybody think there's a thing? This isn't a thing. This is an acceptance. This is an awareness. So I was an unconscious competent when it came to nutrition. I kept diving in further. And it really truthfully wasn't until I started my business and really started, I would even say before that, when I was a Beachbody coach, it was really when I started diving into personal development, all because of Rachel Hollis's book, Girl Wash Face. Changed my life. I was a brand new mother, 6 weeks in, and I read this book, tears and all, in one weekend. And that's really what did it, like, led me here, was that book, because it connected me to this power of, I am not wrong for still wanting to have a life outside of my daughter, right? But then as I dove further and people would talk about morning routines and something like, well, I have good ones. But when I finally got to this, you're just living out your parents' life, I was like, God, I'm just living out my parents' life. So I got a bug crossing the screen. I was like, I am truthfully just living out my parents' life. And that's when it just opened it up. And I realized, as I was learning it for business purposes, I was learning it for my personal growth and being a mom and being a mom to 2 kids and being a military wife. As I was learning it in that process, I went, oh, wow, I've done all of this with nutrition, but I didn't know that that's what I did. So I unconsciously started to do those things and teach those things and what I was doing in my business, et cetera. But once I understood that, it really opened me to getting to the heart of everything altogether.
Leslie, I have loved our conversation so much. You have so much knowledge, so much insight to share. I would love to pivot into a little bit of rapid fire. Are you down?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is your favorite female character in a book or a movie, and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say Sandra Bullock in Practical Magic. And why? Truthfully, because I always felt like she floated to her own tune. And she actually handcrafted her husband, right, at an early age. And then she meets him later in life. I truly believe it's like the combination of manifestation, love. She has fun. The Midnight Margarita scene always speaks to my soul when she does things like that. And I don't know, I just always truly connected to Sandra Bullock in so many ways. So
amazing. What person, alive or alive and in their time, would you want to spend as them, in their body, thinking as them, seeing the world through their eyes?
David Nagel.
Who is that?
David Nagel is the person that woke me up to the fact that I was unconscious, right? That I was just living my parents' life. He runs something like he runs a podcast called the Successful Mind podcast.
Yeah.
But he runs a business. He's a businessman. He helps people with their businesses. But he started in the Midwest, right? He started in Chicago. I'm from St. Louis, so it resonates a little. He has the same middle class mindset as I was. But he has come from literally bankruptcy and earning $19,000 a year with a family of 4 to billions. And he's done it in all of the ways that I've never seen anybody else do it. And so I would love to know what he's just thinking about on regular, like when a problem arises, what's his first thought? What's next? And he teaches those things in his programs, but just to be inside his mind for a minute, I would just absolutely love.
So cool. I am going to have to look him up. I've never heard of him. So I'm so excited to have learned about somebody awesome, new, and amazing who's also a podcaster. And what is your money routine?
I just recently started adding tapping to what I'm doing, but every single day, 6 to 8 times a day, I spend time with my money, with my manifestations, meaning not always is it tangibly in my hands, but just me and my money and giving praise to money, giving praise to the universe, to God, to all of the things that bring that in, and honoring what I really see, how I'm seeing it, the dream that I have for it, why I want it, because truthfully, not money exactly that I want, right? I want food and shelter and the things that it provides to me. But I understand that it's been trained to me to be a bad thing to own. So truthfully, I'm working on that every day and understanding that I truthfully am the source of my wealth and that it's coming from the universe and that it's coming from God. It's not coming through people. And really retraining my brain on that. Money is definitely a thing I'm still constantly always working on. That is one agreement I made with my family at a very young age. And it's one that I'm still really working through, is my relationship with money and making it my own.
Have you noticed a correlation with your relationship with money to the correlation of how you really used to relate to food?
Luckily, no. And I think that's because my food issues came when I was 15 through a friend, versus one of the things David Nagel has taught before is that God, sex, and money are one. He writes it in a certain way to show you how it is one. I truthfully believe that that's more of where it is for me, is that the more and more I come to understanding, God, sex, and money are one in my brain. And it's very interesting. And I've said it literally in 2020 when I started my business. I sometimes, like, as I'm joking just right now, I'm like, God, I knew back then. Why did I take this whole side detour of like whatever I went through? But I knew that this was what it was. And it's truthfully rooted, like God, sex, and money, all the agreements I made truthfully with my family as a child, those all very much interact. And it's so interesting to watch them play out. And the more and more I get aware and I see them, I'm like, oh my gosh, who knew? Thank you for showing me that today. We're going to change that. That's going to shift, because it's just, I mean, I used to make myself feel shame and guilt there, right? Like shame and guilt for the things that I had bonded with. But now it's just me being like, okay, I accepted this at one point, and I'm going to have to choose now to unaccept.
So good. What is your morning and evening routine for success?
It's a great question. My morning routine for success, I always typically wake up and listen to like a brain training, like a hypnosis. And then I listen to a couple of other things that really just kind of resonate, like whether it's like opening my heart chakra up or listening to something that kind of bring me into the day. And then I have a very interesting routine. I typically do a tapping exercise where I speak in my new beliefs of who I'm really empowering, the beliefs that I want to take on. And then I do some journaling. After my journaling is over, I actually have a friend that we voice back and forth, like our miracle morning, 2 minutes of what we're most grateful for, 2 minutes of how we want our day to look, and then 2 minutes of our long-term manifestations. And then I work out. And I try to do all of those things before my children see me, because it is my way of really being myself. And at nighttime, I'm working on that. But typically it's when I'm brushing my teeth to go through my money manifestations, check in with myself, because I do a seven questions in the morning of who I want to be. And at the end of the night, I check in. Did I say I was going to do everything? Did I accomplish it? What's got in my way? What do I need to leave in today as I'm brushing my teeth? And then I typically listen to myself before I go to bed with like a manifestation of my long-term manifestation, really tap into that. And then I close with a subliminal thing I listen to while I sleep. So
amazing. Yeah. What do you define to be your queendom?
Honestly, I would define my queendom as helping women to finally have the life and the body that they've always wanted. It's not one or the other. You can have the life, you can have the body, you can have the health, you can have it all. And there's no sacrifice. Yes, I understand the law of sacrifice exists. Don't get me wrong, but you can have these things and not have to sacrifice your true being.
And lastly, Leslie, how do you crown yourself?
Ooh, me time. Always time by myself. It is always, don't get me wrong, I love being a mom. I will crown myself a mom any day. I love my children to death. But those moments of silence, of sitting with myself, of just taking a few minutes to take in the day and like enjoy my beautiful backyard and really connect to who my true being is, that is when I feel most connected to who I really am.
Beautiful. Leslie, I know you have a digestion code masterclass that is epic. So how do we find you? How do we work with you? How do we take your class? I know we're going to leave a link in the description below if you want to take the class, but tell us more.
Yeah. So right now, I would say you can find me on Facebook. Leslie Fiala is my middle name on there. Urbas is my name. Or you can literally go to groups and just put in digestion codes and you will find my Facebook group. So that's pretty easy to find me there. Other platforms, I'm also on Instagram. But yeah, those would say my top places right now.
Awesome. Go connect with Leslie. Click down below if you're like, yes, I want to learn my digestion code. I want to connect in with who I am and at the core level of my body. Like that's the power that Leslie brings to this conversation. Is it's not just about food or your diet, which really in the Greek, it comes from the Greek meaning lifestyle. So it's not just about the food, it's about your relationship and that digestion code that you have. So go take the class. And as always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If what you heard resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and start creating a bigger impact now by sharing this with a friend. Just by doing that one simple act of kindness, you are creating a royal ripple to support more people in their sovereignty. And if you're not already following on social media, connect with me everywhere at crownyourself.now for more inspiration. I am so excited to connect with you in the next episode. And in the meantime, go out there and create a body, business, and life that rules. Because today, you crown yourself.